I don't know if you saw it or not, but those local in Utah, local for me anyway, a KSL report on a bust that was an investigation for many months, resulted in 20 some odd arrests for human trafficking. The arresting officer, the spokesperson in Utah, said that this was less than the tip of the iceberg for what's going on in the country, but in particular in Utah. 20 arrests, just the tip of the iceberg. And then he said, it's actually a snowflake on an iceberg is what they had. Human trafficking. Now, quite often when we talk about human trafficking, we, and this report did the same thing. It mentions children, but then it immediately goes to women, and it's for the purposes of sex exploitation. But human trafficking is huge with children, So it's a topic no one wants to talk about. We don't hear about it. I think there's more people that would say that you're, no, I better not say that. Anyway, within the church, it could almost be more sinful and going against the prophet to not get a jab and not wear a mask than to participate in human trafficking. And I'm serious about that. It's not even brought up. And it's a huge problem here in Utah and throughout the country. And a lot of different people who go to church on Sunday are involved in this. It's not just, some cartel in Mexico. And a lot of the reasons for the open borders by certain individuals that propose just having very lax laws concerning the borders have to do with human trafficking. It's the gift that keeps on giving for those who are so corrupt and perverted and have no regard for human life. When you're producing a drug and selling it, the drug can only be used once and then it has to be replaced. Human trafficking is the gift that keeps on giving for these evil people in the form of money. It has developed into, in my opinion, from what I've studied and what I've seen, one of the worst conditions and examples of Gadianton behavior, secret combination behavior in this country, and will be the downfall of this country, especially the treatment of women and children in this. So this bust happened. You can read the report, and you can read his words. The arresting officer, the spokesperson that was involved in this investigation that came to fruition, and there were 20 some odd arrested. And he said it's just a tiny speck compared to what goes on. Of course, a lot of it is done online, and they put up sting operations and do all that. But in the meantime, it's horrific. It's horrific. Now, a lot of the human trafficking, and we've all read the stories of the coyotes and bringing people over in payment for bringing someone over the border. We're talking mostly the southern border. They have to perform, it's not pleasant to talk about, but sexual favors as part of their payment. And this goes on and on and on and on. And we're talking children, women. It's disgusting. And it's a real issue that needs to be talked about, rooted out, and not just swept under the rug and like, ooh, I don't want to hear about it, you know. Hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. The scriptures are full, particularly the Old Testament, of rooting out evil. And the Book of Mormon is masterful at rooting out evil and secret combinations that do these hideous things. Just read the second to the last chapter in the Book of Mormon, and it will, you know, you'll see what is happening in our day right now. Very disturbing. I don't know what else to tell you other than that report came, and it was just so impactful. We've talked about it here before, but then it just kind of goes away. And then we all worry about, you know, are we following the prophet by doing, you know, just these little piddly things that just, I don't know. Okay. A little bit of our Come Follow Me. And I'm going to jump ahead a little bit because we're getting close to Passover, and we have to talk about Passover ahead of time so that we can kind of prepare here and prepare here for the meaning of Passover and how the Savior himself taught us what that ordinance, the ordinance of Passover was, and how it became the sacrament. It's so cool. So I know this is jumping ahead of our reading, but if you go to Exodus 12, and I'll get back into the Come Follow Me current in just a second, but chapter 12, verse 43, and the Lord said unto Moses and Aaron, this is the ordinance of the Passover. There shall no stranger eat thereof. Doesn't that sound very similar to the sacrament and those? And we read about it in the Book of Mormon in 3rd Nephi, where nobody unworthily should partake of the sacrament, and people should be that are responsible. The priesthood who's responsible should adhere to that. This is exactly what Elohim is teaching Moses. So it's Christ himself teaching Moses, hey, the Passover is an ordinance, and those that are a stranger shouldn't participate in this. So I love this because it's so much like the sacrament, and it did become the sacrament. The Passover, the Last Supper was on Passover, and it was the culmination of. It was like the Passover leads up to this moment, Christ said. This is it. This is the moment. And so the sacrament, like the Passover, is the ordinance that we get to partake of weekly to remember the Passover, right? It's so awesome because it's our connection to Moses and to Aaron, to the children of Israel, and that sacred ordinance. And it very well could be called Passover as we partake of the sacrament. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And I know all the Come Follow Me's will cover that, but I just had to bring that up as we prepare for Passover, Easter, resurrection, and all that. And it all has to do with the ordinance of Passover, which then became the sacrament at the Last Supper. Very awesome. Now, also in verse 24, Exodus 12, actually verse 23 and 24. So Exodus 12:23, for the Lord will pass through to smite the Egyptians, and when he seeth the blood upon the lintel and on the two side posts, the Lord will pass over the door and will not suffer the destroyer to come in unto your houses to smite you. 24. And ye shall observe this thing for an ordinance to thee and to thy sons forever. Sacrament, we partake of the sacrament, we take on the name of Christ, and the destroyer passes over us. It's just it's so awesome. So as we understand the Passover and the ordinance, we will understand the sacrament oh so much better. Okay, now the other thing I wanted to talk about is the priesthood, and Follow Him with John By the Way and Hank Smith, and they had the guest, can't remember, but it was a part 3, very, very good. And he covered this very well, so I would refer to that. But one thing I just thought was interesting is we have in section 84 this gem of the priesthood lineage of Moses. Okay, and so if we go to the beginning of section 4, verse 6. Actually, you know what? I'm going to start further because, you know, I know a lot of us, we think about the New Jerusalem. We talk about the New Jerusalem. We look forward to the New Jerusalem. And I have suggested that the New Jerusalem could be right here, right now, in the headquarters of the church in Salt Lake City, the Salt Lake Temple being the center, and then the satellite temples spread out. We have 20 plus, right? 26 or 7 either announced or built or functioning. I don't know how many functioning, 24 maybe functioning temples in Utah. It really fits the bill. And this, I think, is another evidence of that. And it ties right in to the lineage and to Moses receiving the priesthood from his father-in-law, Jethro. You wouldn't think that, but it does. It does. I'll start in verse 2 of section 84. Yea, the word of the Lord concerning his church, established in the last days for the restoration of his people, as he has spoken by the mouth of his prophets. Now think if any of this has happened, is happening, okay? Not as a future event. So let's look at that. Yea, the word of the Lord concerning his church, established in the last days for the restoration of his people. Has that been happening? I say yes. Spoken by the mouth of his prophets, and for the gathering of his saints to stand upon Mount Zion, which shall be the city of New Jerusalem. So this hasn't happened yet? None of this has happened? Which city shall be built beginning at the temple lot? And this is where everyone says, well, it hasn't happened yet because it hasn't been built. And the temple lot's in Jackson County, Missouri. Independence. Which is appointed by the finger of the Lord in the western boundaries of the state of Missouri, and dedicated by the hand of Joseph Smith Jr. and others, whom the Lord was well pleased. Verily, this is the word of the Lord, that the city, New Jerusalem, shall be built by the gathering of the saints, beginning at this place, even the place of the temple, which temple shall be reared in this generation. And most that believe that it has to be in Jackson County, Missouri, Independence, Missouri, would point to those 2 verses specifically, that hasn't happened yet, and that's where it has to be because it's in the scripture. Now, we've pointed out that, I think it's in, is it section 114, I believe, that Christ accepted their offering, but because things didn't work out there, time to go to plan B, right? But we'll leave that for now. So let's just take it for the reading. So I would say Verse 2 has been fulfilled and is continuing to be fulfilled. I would say that. Verse 3 and 4, no, hasn't happened, wasn't in Missouri. There's no temple on the temple lot. There's a visitor center that's encompassed within that, but that's it. Other religious faiths own the other places. Okay. Verse 5, for verily this generation shall not pass away until an house shall be built unto the Lord, and a cloud shall rest upon it. See, this sounds very Moses-like, right? Which cloud shall be even the glory of the Lord, which shall fill the house. Now, to me, that sounds a lot like Kirtland and the restoration of priesthood keys, in particular by the different individuals, resurrected, glorified beings that came and restored those keys. Verse 6, and the sons of Moses, according to the holy priesthood, which he hath received under the hand of his father-in-law, Jethro. And here, so this is now we're current. Now we're reading current stuff in Come Follow Me. Jethro. Now, interesting thing about Jethro, he was a Midianite. A Midianite, kind of in the north, and I would say west part of Saudi Arabia. Now, this is a little bit of a stretch, perhaps, but perhaps not. But it could be that the Nabateans are descendants of the Midianites. You can look it up, and there's some very strong evidence that the Nabateans could have been descendants of the Midianites. And the Midianites, it looks like, and it appears that one of Abraham's sons, can't remember which wife, but had a son, and that's where the Midianites come from. And so the priesthood comes that way. So we have to think of the priesthood a different way than we normally think of today. It has nothing to do with the children of Israel. Jethro, being a Midianite, and probably the descendants were the Nabateans, or a mixture of some others in there. Could even be some Moabites mixed in there. But Jethro had the priesthood and the Melchizedek priesthood and bestowed it, or conferred it, is probably maybe a better word, upon Moses. Now, isn't that interesting that Jehovah would use a man outside of Israel to bestow the priesthood and give Moses the authority to go and do all the things he did? It's so cool. And Jethro received it under the hand of Caleb. Okay, so Jethro received it Moses received the priesthood from Jethro. And then we get this awesome lineage in section 84 of the Doctrine and Covenants. Now, we have these verses about the New Jerusalem. And now we're going to talk about the priesthood and see if this has happened. Because now you got to read this carefully, because what it looks like is that this is only going to happen once the New Jerusalem is established. So if you say it hasn't been established, then the priesthood hasn't been established, right? Because listen, okay. For verily, verse 5, for verily this generation shall not all pass away until an house shall be built unto the Lord, a cloud shall rest upon it, which cloud shall be even the glory of the Lord, which shall fill the house. Now, folks, if you read the dedication of the Kirtland Temple, that is a description of what took place in the Kirtland Temple, okay? And the sons of Moses, according to the holy priesthood, which now this is all in reference to the New Jerusalem. And the sons of Moses, according to the holy priesthood, which he received under the hand of his father-in-law, Jethro. And Jethro received it from Caleb. Caleb received it from Elihu. and Elihu under the hand of Jeremy, and Jeremy under the hand of Gad, and Gad under the hand of Isaias, and Isaias received it under the hand of God. Isaias lived in the days of Abraham and was blessed of him. So Abraham didn't give him the priesthood. So who is this? It's not Isaiah, even though we pronounce sometimes Isaias, and it refers to the prophet Isaiah that we're all familiar with. This was a different guy at the time of Abraham, and he received it from Jehovah himself, or this could be God the Father, for all we know, by the hand of God. But then Abraham blessed him. So you see how this priesthood was given to other people. We don't know the lineage of Isaias, but he was contemporary of Abraham, and Abraham blessed him, which Abraham then received the priesthood from Melchizedek, and we know that story, and then on down for Noah, and it goes through that. Now, this all has to do with the New Jerusalem, okay? And then we'll skip down to verse 18, and the Lord confirmed the priesthood upon Aaron, and the generations of the priesthood conferred abideth forever, priesthood which is after the holy order of God. I'm just kind of... And the greater priesthood administer the gospel, holding the keys of the mysteries of the kingdom, even the keys of the knowledge of God. Okay? Therefore, in the ordinances thereof, the power of godliness is manifest. I love that. I love that verse. Elder Bednar quotes that a lot. And without the ordinances and the authority of the priesthood, the power of godliness is not manifest unto men in the flesh. Has that happened, folks? Brothers and sisters, it has happened. It happened in Kirtland. Those keys were restored, the ordinances. It all happened. It all happened. And it continued to happen and continued to develop. The full endowment wasn't given until to the general folks until Nauvoo. So again, that was part of the New Jerusalem. And then once the saints came to the Salt Lake Valley, the New Jerusalem. I'm convinced of that. If you read section 84, particularly the beginning verses, you can see how the New Jerusalem ties into all this. And if you say that none of this has happened because the New Jerusalem hasn't been established, then you're kind of stuck. You're saying, well, we don't really have the priesthood, we don't really have the ordinances because the New Jerusalem hasn't been established. And then you get in a lot of trouble. Now, verse 31 in section 84. Therefore, as I said concerning the sons of Moses, for the sons of Moses and all the sons of Aaron shall offer an acceptable offering and sacrifice in the house of the Lord, which house shall be built unto the Lord in this generation upon the consecrated spot as I have appointed. Now, you could say that that hasn't happened yet. Has it happened? Look at a lot of the definitions of what the sacrifice of an acceptable offering and what that sacrifice is. Verse 32, and the sons of Moses and of Aaron shall be filled with the glory of the Lord upon Mount Zion in the Lord's house, whose sons are ye, and also many whom I have called and sent forth to build up my church. And whoso is faithful unto the obtaining of these priesthoods, right? We have the oath and covenant of the priesthood right there. So you either have to say this didn't happen, or and none of this pertains because we don't have the New Jerusalem in Jackson County, or you have to say that it did happen in other spots, and we have the priesthood, we have the ordinances, and things are happening. because the New Jerusalem has been established. On the American continent, as we read in the Articles of Faith, number 10. Okay, so there's that. I just thought I'd bring that up. I know I'll, ruffle some feathers on this, but guys, if we're looking for a lot of things to happen in the future, we're no different than the Jews at Christ's time when they looked beyond the mark, when Christ was standing right before them. And they're like, no, we're looking for somebody that's a little bigger, that'll take on the Romans. That's who we're looking for. We're not looking for a wiry, probably malnourished, quiet man that preaches peace. We're looking for a sword-yielding, Moses kind of guy that's going to take on Pharaoh or the Romans at that time and, kick some, and deliver us from bondage. That's what they were looking for, and they looked beyond the mark. And I think quite often we as Latter-day Saints, we look beyond the mark, and here we are in Utah with 20 plus temples functioning and going. We go, yeah, but you know what? Someday we're going to have the blessing of the New Jerusalem in Jackson County. But until then, we just kind of have to wait for the prophet to say it's time to go back. I don't buy it. Okay. Some of you have had some issues getting that discount, the cow's discount. So I talked to my good friend John Hewlett, and he said, look, he apologized, he doesn't know why, but there's an 800 number, and I will pin that in the comment section. I will pin it there. This is the customer support. So it's 1-800-663. You thought I was going to say 666, didn't you? Sorry. 1-800-663-0158. 0158. I'll say it again. 1-800-663-0158. And again, I'll put that in the pinned comment section. I'll pin it so it'll be the top comment. If you have trouble having that code word, COWS, C-O-W-S, call that 1-800 number and they will apply that discount, okay? So we want to make sure you get the discount and give it a try. I love this stuff. Now, I had a few people from my last video say, well, because you talked about a certain topic, you're going to lose the sponsor. You're going, what did one guy say? Your video was like watching a train wreck because it's just a disaster because I brought up certain things that, we're technically not supposed to talk about. They're forbidden. And you know what? I will promise you, I will never be compromised to try to keep a sponsor. And I will continue to talk about this because I believe in it. But at least right now, the sponsor has no issue with my last video. So we'll see what happens. I don't promise anything or but I'll continue to talk about those issues. It's interesting, the Supreme Court nominee, the leniency for pedophiles is amazing. And this goes right along with human trafficking. It goes right along with so many other things. And it's the elite have been involved in pedophilia for a long, long time. And it's another thing that, controversial, better not talk about it. Secret combinations always attack the innocent. And the younger, the more power they think they get by the younger the victim It's disgusting. And of course, we don't like talking about these things. But the reality is they exist, and they exist big time. And it will be the downfall of this country. It will be the downfall of this country. It will be the downfall of this country if it's not rooted out and repented of and addressed. So, in my opinion, it needs to be brought up, brought to light. Get the light. You know what happens when you shine a light on disgusting things like that? The rats, they run away. And they do their deeds in the dark. And the dark is evil, right? So that's why we talk about it. That's why we do the things we do. So I don't want to continue to just pound that particular key all the time, but I do need to bring it up because it was in the news. It's in the news in so many ways. So we have a Supreme Court nominee where it's brought up, and it might not be the trafficking specifically, but it's all related because the access to, here's what's happening a lot. It used to be back in the day that those that were into pedophilia, they captured their victims and did their deed. Now there is such a market that the kidnappers are just kidnapping, and then they get paid, and then they go on their way. And then it's the high rollers that then pay for the victim through a secret combination that allows this to happen. There's individuals that are on top of this. You can find out some of the great work that many people are doing to thwart this evil, because it really will be the downfall. Look at what Christ said about harming the little ones. And look at the Karl Bloch painting, where Christ, I think he has his hand on the little child's head. You look at the face, you look at the eyes of Christ as painted by Karl Bloch in that painting, and you tell me that there won't be justice. You tell me that this isn't the most evil thing that can be perpetrated in this country, is the innocent women and children being sold, abused, tortured for those in the secret combination. And Christ will root them out. But in the meantime, we should be doing that too. Because what they do that's allowed, or our heads are turned, or we ignore it, we're going to be we're going to receive some of that judgment for doing that. In my opinion, right? In my opinion. Okay, love you all. I know God loves you. I know He loves me. I'm looking so forward to this Easter season. It's getting warm. The sun's out more, and it reminds us of the rebirth. Christ conquering death in victory and wiping away the tears off all faces. I love that. And that's it. Talk to you soon. Bye.